The Secret of the Old Clock. Chapter 14, A Tense Chase. "Which way is Melbourne?" Nancy asked the caretaker when they reached the highway. "Down there," he pointed. "That's the direction the thieves took," Nancy told him, noting the dust and tire marks which revealed the van's exit onto the highway. "But," she added, glancing at the dashboard clock, "they're probably too far away by this time for us to catch them." "Yes, ding it," Jeff muttered. Nancy drove as rapidly as the law permitted toward Melbourne. All the while, Jeff Tucker peered from one side of the road to the other. "Those rascal thieves might just have nerve enough to stop and count their loot," he said, "so I'm keeping a sharp eye peeled." Nancy smiled in spite of the gravity of the situation. "Maybe," she replied, "though I doubt that those men would be so reckless." "Oh, I don't mean out in plain sight. They might have pulled off the road back of some of these closed-up summer places. We'll watch for their tire marks on any dirt road," the young Stu said. Jeff became so absorbed in looking for the van's tire marks that he never asked Nancy why she had come to see him at the Topham house. "Those fake movers," he said as they neared the outskirts of Melbourne. "I wonder how far they went." Nancy did not reply until they came to a crossroad. Then she pointed. "They turn north here, on this dirt road. How much farther is it to Melbourne?" "Only a mile." As they came into the little town, Nancy asked her companion, "Which way to State Police Headquarters?" "Go right down Central Avenue to Maple Street, turn left, and there it is." Reaching headquarters, Nancy parked the car and hopped out. Jeff Tucker followed as she walked briskly into the office. "I want to report a robbery," she told the desk sergeant after identifying herself. For a moment, the officer, taken aback, looked in astonishment at Nancy. "You've been robbed?" he asked. "In our town?" No, Nancy cried out. Then she gave a quick but complete resume of what had taken place at the Topham cottage. Jeff Tucker added his account. The police officer needed no further urging. Immediately he summoned 4 men and issued orders. "Now," he said, turning to Nancy, "have you any idea which road the thieves took?" "Yes, officer. When we passed the road crossing a mile outside of town, I saw their truck tracks on the dirt road leading north. I'll be glad to show you." "Good. Lead the way. But first, I'll send out a general alarm." "Hurry," Nancy begged as she started out. "Those thieves have at least an hour's head start." Jeff Tucker had been advised to return to his home. Accordingly, he telephoned his son to come and pick him up in his car. "Good luck," he called as the others pulled away. "I sure don't know how I'm going to break this to the Tophams." Nancy was sorry for him, but she felt a thrill of excitement as she proceeded up the street, the police car following close behind. Beyond the town, Nancy chose the road which she felt certain the thieves had used. The 2 cars sped along until Nancy unexpectedly came to a fork. Both branches were paved and no tire marks were visible. Nancy stopped. The police car pulled up alongside. "What's the matter?" asked the officer in charge, whose name was Elton. "I'm not sure which way to go now." The policemen sprang from their automobile and began to examine the road. Officer Elton said that if a moving van had passed that way, its tire marks had been obliterated by other vehicles. It was impossible to tell which route the thieves had traveled. "It'll be strictly guesswork from here," Officer Elton said to Nancy. "In that case," replied Nancy, "it's my guess that the van went to the left." She pointed into a sign which read, "Garwin, 50 miles. Isn't Garwin a fairly large city?" she queried. "Yes. Perhaps the thieves headed that way to dispose of stolen furniture." The officer nodded approvingly. "Sounds reasonable," he said. "Well, in any case, we can't go much farther because we're near the state line." Nancy had another thought. "I'll take the road to Garwin and swing around toward River Heights," she smiled. "If I see those thieves, I'll let you know." "Well, you watch out, young lady. Those men may lock you up again." "I will, and anyhow, there's plenty of traffic as soon as I reach the main highway." Without giving the policeman an opportunity for further objection, Nancy started up and swung her car to the left. She noted in her rearview mirror that the squad car had turned onto the right-hand road. "The officers must have picked up a clue," Nancy said to herself, "but I certainly wish I could spot that van and maybe find a chance to look in the old clock." Nancy soon reached the main road. As mile after mile of highway spun behind her, Nancy's hopes grew dim. There were a number of side roads, any one of which the moving van might have taken to elude pursuers. The young sleuth decided to adhere to her original theory that Sid and his pals had headed for Garwin and kept on the main highway. Those thieves think Jeff and I are still locked up and won't suspect they're being followed, she assured herself. Smiling, she thought hopefully, in that case, they won't be on their guard. About 10 minutes later, Nancy stopped at a service station to have her car refueled and on impulse asked the attendant, "Did you by any chance see a moving van pass here recently?" "Sure did, miss," was the prompt answer. "About half an hour ago. I noticed it because the driver was going at a terrific speed for a van." Heartened, Nancy thanked him and resumed her pursuit, going past the turn for River Heights. If only I can overtake the truck and somehow examine the Crawley clock before I have to report to the police, she thought. Again, time elapsed, and Nancy still saw no sign of a moving van on the highway. It was growing dusk, and she decided that she would have to admit defeat. "I never caught up to them," she sighed in disappointment, and turning into the opposite lane, headed back for the River Heights road. Just then, Nancy recalled what a little beyond the service station where she had stopped, she had noticed a rather run-down old inn. It was slim hope, she knew, but the thieves might have put their van behind it while having meal there. "I'll go in and ask anyhow," she decided. Nancy increased her speed as much as she dared, and within a few minutes came in sight of the inn. It stood back from the road a short distance and was half hidden by tall trees. In front of the building, a battered sign bearing the name Black Horse Inn creaked back and forth from a post. There was no sign of the van. Beyond the inn, Nancy glimpsed a garage and a large barn. The doors to both were closed. "I wonder," mused Nancy, "if the moving van is parked inside either one." At the far side of the inn was a small woods with a narrow road leading into it. For safety's sake, Nancy thought it best to park her car on this little unused road. She turned off the car lights, pocketed the key, and walked back to the curving driveway leading to the inn. As Nancy made her way forward, her heart pounded. There were tire marks which could belong to Sid's van. They led to the barn. "Maybe those thieves are eating," she thought. "I'll look." As Nancy stepped onto the porch, the sound of raucous laughter reached her ears. She tiptoed to a window and peered inside. What the young sleuth saw made her gasp, and she felt a glow of satisfaction. In the dingy, dimly lighted room, 3 men were seated about a table eating voraciously. They were the thieves who had robbed the Topham bungalow. Talk to you tomorrow.